Welcome to Command Control Power, a weekly podcast hosted by 3 certified members of the Apple Consultants Network, drawing from over half a century of combined experience. We talk shop, interview vendors and colleagues, and share what we've learned while operating our technology consulting practices. Visit commandcontrolpower.com for show notes and click support to join our community for exclusive access to patron-only episodes, special features, merchandise, and other membership perks. This is Joe Saponari of SciMac, and my 2 co-hosts are Jerry Zigman of MacWorks and Sam Valencia of the HCS Technology Group. Thanks for listening. Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our community. Our VIP supporters include Jason Detbarn of Adigy.com, Taylor Boyko of SimpleMDM.com, Collide.co, John Brown of GroveTech.co, Watchman Monitoring, and Adam Angst of Tidbits Content Network. Thanks very much for supporting the show.
This week on Command Control Power, we are featuring a patron-only show for our supporters. If you're already subscribed on Patreon, you will find this week's show in your private podcast feed. To sign up and get instant access to special features, go to commandcontrolpower.com and click on Support. For our general audience, we're featuring a classic episode from our catalog of nearly 500 episodes. We hope you enjoy it. This show was originally broadcast on June 14, 2014.
Welcome to Command Control Power. We feature a special guest this week, an interview with Brian Best from BestMacs and Mac-MSP, makers of Gruntwork. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well,
Hello.
It's great to have you here. I mean, we've been talking about managed services for a long time, and we're happy to join us. And a little through no fault of your own, you're a little bit late to the party, but by all means, welcome.
No, it's cool. There's a little late to the party, yes, but I've been doing managed services now for about 4 years, so I don't know that I'm that late. Just kind of real
to our party.
It's myself. Yeah, to your party, definitely. It's been great. I've been listening and really enjoying hearing Alan and Luis and Kevin and all the other speakers you guys have had talk about this topic. It's been really good stuff. I've picked up a few tidbits for myself. It's been fantastic.
Well, it definitely drew a lot of interest from the audience and from us, to be honest with you. So the fact that we're able to connect with you about that topic is, I think managed services is still just a big discussion point that a lot of different ACNs want to hear more about.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we've all been making little tweaks to our business models, taking these ideas into consideration. And I know, Sam, you've even signed a managed services client in the last month or two, right?
Yeah, it's been interesting, and I want to hear more from you, Brian, about that stuff. But yeah, on my end, it's been interesting just changing my billing procedure for that client and kind of separating them out from the rest of my normal contractual clients. So that I'll discuss one day in the near future, kind of some of the challenges of that. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. And, personally, I wouldn't have made anywhere near as much progress, kind of going down this path if it weren't for the series we've been doing. It's kind of just a kick in the pants to get into this stuff. So, so sort of on that topic, I guess, Brian, before we get into that, what's your background in the Mac? What got you into the Mac in the first place?
Oh, man, guys, I've been on the Mac 7th grade, System 6, black and white, 9-inch monitors. I don't really say that necessarily to brag, but I'm not one of these, I'm a Mac hipster, I was Mac before it was cool. So, I lived through the 90s and the dark ages of the Power Mac 4400 and cried a little bit when iMac came out because he knew something cool was coming around with Steve coming back and all that. So I've been doing the Mac for quite some time, professionally, probably since about 96, 97 is when I first got my first gig supporting the Mac on a professional level, and then started BestMacs in November of 99.
So was this just a side gig that you picked up and then built it into a business a couple of years later?
Yeah, it coincided with a move. I grew up in the Northeast in upstate New York, and then I moved down to Kansas City. My wife's from here. And so when I moved down to KC, I said, you know what? I've always wanted to run my own show. I really love supporting the Mac, so I'm going to take a shot at it. And I landed actually just west of Kansas City in Lawrence, Kansas. So if you're, a basketball fan, the Jayhawks, they're right in our backyard. And got down here, just kind of put on a suit and tie, walked around, started shaking hands with people who I thought would use Macs, ad agencies, graphic design houses, that sort of thing. And just got lucky, really. I mean, there was a pent up demand for Mac support down in this area. And I came in and started getting business, and it just kind of grew from there. It's been a great ride.
Wow, naturally progressed. So was it a lot of word of mouth after you started getting your first couple?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was all pretty much word of mouth at first. I did the phone book ad for a little while. When I don't know if anybody's still doing phone book ads anymore, but getting those calls. Just when you first start out, you know how it is. You're hungry. You'll take just about anything under the sun. I was even doing FileMaker databases for people at one point, just to get whatever I could get. And I was also fortunate that I had a gig where I was going around the country doing 2 and 3 day seminars on Macintosh troubleshooting for a company called SkillPath CompuMaster that's based here out of Kansas City. So
say that 3 times fast.
Yeah, no kidding, right? But that was a great experience going around to did a lot in Southern Cal, Boston. A lot in the Midwest, Minneapolis, Texas, just flying around, going to a hotel, talking in front of a big group of anywhere from 5 to 100 people about how to fix their Mac for a couple of days. And it filled in the gaps while BestMacs was kind of getting things going. And then right around 2004, we was able to stop that because I had enough local contracts that I could stay busy here and get all the bills paid.
Oh, that's neat. That was a nice opportunity. And when you were supporting these Macs back in the day, I mean, it must have been a much different landscape than it is right now. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. The big thing, even back then, I was really wanting to do remote support. Out here in Kansas City, it's really spread out. I mean, you go from it's not uncommon for me to drive an hour to get to a client, and that hour isn't necessarily caught in traffic. It is just geographically, I'm going 70 mile an hour, and it's going to take me an hour to get there. And there's the client base is very well spread out. I mean, if you pull up a map, we're going from the state capital in Topeka to Lawrence to the entire Kansas City metro over in Missouri. So it's a very wide geographic area. And so even back then, I was really wanting to do remote support as often as I could do it. But, internet wasn't always there. We still had clients on dial-up. Even in the age of the cable modem first coming onto the scene, we still had dial-up clients. The software wasn't always there. We were using there was an offshoot of Timbuktu we were using for a little while. I can't even remember what it was called now. But, the Timbuktu guys are here in Lawrence. So that was a good product to get on board with. I still have some friends over in that group. But
I had no idea they were from there. Sorry to interrupt.
Yep. No worries. And but today, obviously, 90% of what I do for my clients, we're doing remotely. My team and I are hopping in and doing it almost all remotely. But we still have to get out and do projects and on-site visits. You got a machine that won't boot. You got a network issue. Obviously, you got to get in the car. But the great majority of the time, we're able to just hop on and remote into their machine and take care of it. And the interesting thing is, most clients these days, back then, that was like, wow, that's black magic. That's voodoo. Today, it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm going to start driving. Oh, yeah, I see you. No problem. It doesn't even faze people anymore.
Right.
Yeah, they expect it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't you just go in and do that magic remotely?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that the interesting thing there is it's like, well, you mean you can't just drop what you're doing and get
Right. Right. I even get clients who give like almost no information about what the problem is. They'll talk to my wife Ashley, our office manager, and they'll say, oh, Joe knows. He'll just jump on. Joe knows. It's like, well, I need to kind of know what I'm supposed to be doing.
They almost disregard her, right? They're like, just put Joe on. He knows what to do.
Yeah. Just let him jump on. Just click a few buttons.
Was that weird, Joe, to say my wife, Ashley?
It's still weird. Yeah, it is still weird. She was my fiance for so long. It's like we're still getting used to it. It's great. And sometimes on the show, I don't know whether to call her my wife or my office manager, but so I throw both in there. But Brian, you mentioned that you have something like 90% remote. Is that kind of a byproduct of doing so many managed services? People just get it that you're going to jump on and just take care of stuff like that?
Well, at this point, my entire client base is managed services. We don't have any clients that we bill hourly at this point. So as part of our contract, as part of our service model, remote support is on an unlimited basis for their monthly fee. So, we encourage the client to work with us remotely as often as possible. And, that's got some obvious benefits and challenges too, but that's our model. We include some on-site just so we're not nickel and diming people to death. Every time we got to get in the car just because, they got a printer issue that we can't solve remotely or network's down or bad switch or something like that. But yeah, whenever possible, it's just more efficient for my team and myself to be able to hop on remotely and knock out issues whenever possible.
So do you pretty much require, unattended access to all the machines of the clients?
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned, I'm sure we're going to talk about Gruntwork here in a little bit, but a companion product to Gruntwork is our solution for remote support. And so all of the machines that we support have an always-on connection to us that we can get to unattended.
Now, is that something that you guys developed in-house, or do you use a third-party product?
No, that's in-house. That's in-house, and we're going to add that to the Mac-MSP portfolio here very soon. We're just kind of getting it converted from what BestMacs has been using for the past few years to something that other ACNs and other Apple pros might find useful.
And how did you arrive at that? It probably sounded good, but from drawing something on a napkin to implementation, how did you get there? I mean, did you have programming skill, or did you reach out to?
It's two answers to that. The first is that it's a build versus buy debate. I looked at the tools that were out there. At one point in time, I was leveraging Mac Helpmate. I looked at things like LogMeIn and TeamViewer, and you guys know all the different things that are out there for this sort of stuff. And when you talk about Gruntwork and similar products, I was looking at Casper, I was looking at Absolute, I was looking at all these different tools. And the problem was that, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm just a perfectionist or a megalomaniac, or maybe I'm just an idiot and I'm insane, but I really just wanted what I wanted. And all these products got me about 80% of the way there. And it's just like, some of them were insanely expensive for the amount of clients that I was going to bring to the table. And it's just like, God, I cannot pay this kind of money for 80% of the way there. And so I just sat down and started building it. I'm not really a programmer by trade. Well, I wasn't. At this point, I'm getting more and more. I learned programming very early on in computers. Kind of, you guys will like the story. Sitting in a computer lab in college in '93 in front of a Power Mac 6100, trying to get something to compile for a project that's due the next morning. It's 3 a.m. The dang thing won't compile. Some dude walks by me and says, "Oh, you're missing a semicolon on line 6." I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." And sure as heck it compiles. I'm like, "I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. No way." And that pretty much killed my college career and got me into eventually what would be IT. But now here I am all these years later, and I'm doing a whole bunch of, Gruntwork and these similar products are primarily mine. I will outsource, bits that I'm not capable of doing, or that it would take too long for me to scale up and be able to handle. But for the most part, I built the great majority of it.
Very impressive then.
Yeah, no, that speaks volumes. Because a lot of us are, frustrated by these solutions. Either, like you say, that it gets us 80% of the way there, but not quite a home run. Mm-hmm. And the other trade-off is the amount of cash investment that we have to make to get launched with any of these, and trying to get a return. Looking at how long it would take to get a return on that investment. So that's very impressive. Yeah,
it's. I think it's necessity is a mother of invention, right? And that's all it really was just it was the same kind of deal. Like I said, I really wanted what I wanted, and it was just, okay, how am I going to get this to happen? And credit to Alan, who I see is on the chat here. He obviously developed Watchman monitoring right about the same time that I was making this move to managed services and determining that I needed the tools. Late last year, it was kind of an impetus from him and from his community board that said, hey, you know what? There's a need for this stuff beyond just BestMacs and my company, what I'm doing for my clients. There's people who might really benefit from this. So it's time to just kind of put it out there and see how it does. And the response so far has been really good.
Were you nervous about that initially? I mean, basically putting it out there and seeing what people said. Yeah.
Terrified. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the reason. I mean, it was always kind of one of those things. In 2010, I said, hey, I was already writing this stuff. I was already starting to use it in my own client base, and I just said, eventually I'm gonna get this out there, and I'm gonna sell this product. But then you start to get into the realities of that. We had a situation about maybe a year and a half in where I really screwed up. I messed up something, and I had to go reinstall it on every machine manually. And that really set me back quite a bit in the desire to put it out there, because I'm like, my God, what if I did this to everybody that I sold this to, and I'm asking them all to go touch all of their clients? It was terrifying. So as you can imagine, I'm very careful. I'm fast in testing, slow in deployment at this point.
So take us through your product line and tell us exactly, the two, because you have two separate products, and tell us the differences and, short elevator speech on both of them. And
sure. So Mac-MSP right now is the name we're doing this under. It's an offshoot, just to separate it from my managed services practice. And so Mac-MSP right now, the only thing we're really offering is Gruntwork, and Gruntwork is the automated maintenance piece that we do. And the idea behind it was that you guys know there's all these tasks that you really want to do at every client, and sometimes you do them before you start troubleshooting a thing. Sometimes they're the first things you might do when you're troubleshooting a thing that you're not sure what the answer is, like running a disk verification, running a permission repair, pitching out caches, that sort of thing, running software updates. The software update piece is actually kind of interesting, because that's the biggest part that I did not write. That is actually a very well-known open source product called Monkey.
Okay.
And Monkey, obviously, by Disney, by Greg at Disney, who, I'll talk about him like I know him, because I love the guy, but I do not know him personally. I've never met him. But obviously he wrote this thing, put it out there open source. I started studying Monkey as a way to distribute third-party software, and great product, really does a fantastic job at deploying software updates. Problem is the learning curve is really high, getting to know how to do it, getting to set it all up. So putting out Gruntwork as a maintenance package that does all these different maintenance things, well, the biggest problem we have these days, I think, in the problems that we see as ACNs is bugs. It's bugs in software. And so the biggest way to prevent bugs from really biting you is to deploy the updates, and deploy them in such a way that you're not first to market. Let somebody else be the first adopter, take those arrows. You don't want that going out to all your entire client base and finding out, oops, it broke something, and causing all these headaches for yourself. So what we did with Gruntwork when we put it out there, obviously there's my part of it that does the automated disk verification and repair, and does the permission stuff, and does the caches, and a few different other things, memory testing and so forth. It also is a full Monkey repository with about 200 and some odd available updates in there. And then so that's what's available now. That's what we've got. The next thing we're working on is the remote screen sharing and remote SSH solution. And
well, that's very cool. I mean, that would be something that I think we would all welcome, is another remote screen sharing app that actually speaks to the consultant. And not just the person looking to do a webinar.
Yeah.
With regards to the remote SSH you mentioned, is that doing anything on the networking end to allow it to punch through a firewall, or do you use VPN first and then SSH to a machine?
It doesn't. Firewalls usually aren't an issue, because most firewalls are blocking the outside world from coming in. There's not a lot that are blocking things going out. And what happens with Blue Sky, that's what we're calling our SSH solution. The client machine initiates the SSH tunnel to our server, and then we go back in through that.
Cool.
So we don't have to punch a hole through the firewall. We do have BestMacs. We have a handful of clients that are larger organizations. Your Mac island inside of that big ocean of Windows PCs, and so we've had very good luck getting it to work through proxy servers.
So this is what you call like a reverse proxy, is that right?
Yeah, it's a reverse tunnel through SSH. Yeah, so the machine establishes this SSH tunnel to our server and opens up ports on the server to come back to SSH on the workstation and VNC on the workstation. So you go into System Prefs, you turn on VNC, you turn screen sharing or remote desktop, and then you turn on remote shell or remote login, and you get in through those. And so the machine, there's some protections. We do some things with PKI to make sure that, we're talking to the right server. And then, my team, to connect to those machines, we connect to that same server in the middle. And then we tell it, hey, I want to go talk to this machine on this ID. And it sends us down the right tunnel. And then we have to authenticate to the authentication on the local workstation that we're connecting to.
Right, because you're just using the built-in services that you've turned on.
Right.
Cool.
And what servers are these that you're utilizing for this? I mean, are they hosted elsewhere?
Well, right now, Blue Sky has only been in use for BestMacs for my company, and so we've got it on a mini server that we've got co-loaded somewhere. Gruntwork has a server instance that we spin up a different server instance for each subscriber. And right now, we're doing those on DigitalOcean, and they're Linux boxes.
Gotcha. Well, that's pretty powerful stuff for the remote tools, and creating that reverse tunnel definitely helps to not have to navigate through each client's VPN or like we talked about on the firewall end. So that's very impressive.
Yeah, it's made life a lot easier for us. The big impetus for Blue Sky was the remote shell. I'm a kind of a fan of getting into the terminal and executing terminal commands, especially when I know there's a simple little command I can use to set a pref that won't make it so that I have to bug my client and say, hey, Mr. Client, I got to get onto your computer for 10 minutes. Can I just bump off whatever you're doing just to execute a little command on the terminal? But, when you look at like a LogMeIn or you look at a Team Viewer or something like that, well, they're all trying to seize the console. My hope and what eventually came about with Blue Sky was that I could just hop onto the shell and they don't even necessarily need to know I'm there. I'll just hop in as long as I got credentials, which of course all my clients are managed services, so I've got those credentials. Me or one of my team, we just hop in, bang out what we need, send them a little ticket in Zendesk, say, hey, you're all set. Let us know if there's a problem.
Yeah, that's a great feature to be able to do that without popping open, a terminal window in front of the user, and they're like, "Oh my God, there's weird code on my screen. What's going on?"
Yeah, and as long as in that same vein, when you're connecting over the Apple VNC service in Lion and Higher, you log in as yourself as your user account. It says, "Hey, do you want to share the screen with Joe Blow, or do you want to open your own session?" And so, if we don't want to disturb our user, but we still need a GUI, we just open our own session.
That's a good idea too. Yeah.
Well, I love the power of the command line, especially remotely. You hit the nail on the head, and I'm always preaching this too when I'm talking to people, other consultants and stuff. It's just the power of what you can do under the hood without the end user even knowing that anything happened. And then the fact that you send a Zendesk ticket, it's like, hey, by the way, you had an issue, but we took care of it for you already. They're like, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's pretty rocking. And how go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're all right. Go ahead.
How long has this been in production? And you have two different phases, right? You were using it on your own, and then you released it to the public. So, what are the different timelines for each of those? So, let's see. We did the conversion to managed services in 2010, and that's when I started building the tools because I knew I was going to need these tools before going to that route. And I was doing the whole which tool should I use things since somewhere in 2009. And finally in 2010, we kind of finished up that first build of the tools I wanted to use. In their current form, we've had them in production probably for at least a couple of years now. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact date, but it's all right.
At least a couple of years. So, and that I think that's part of my impetus for releasing them in such a way that other vendors could, other folks like you guys could use them, was that I've used them myself. I wouldn't feel right. Like, for example, with Blue Sky, we've been using it the way we've been using it for BestMacs now for a couple of years. Just like with Gruntwork, there's some elements to it that are just unique to my business that you guys probably wouldn't want, or that I'd really want to have more polish before you guys use them. And so I'm doing what amounts to an upgrade from like a 3.0 to a 4.0, and the 4.0 version is what Mac-MSP is going to offer. And that's exactly what we did with Gruntwork. We did the same thing. Gruntwork was actually the version the BestMacs used was completely reliant on that SSH tunnel. We used it for everything. Well, obviously, I'm putting Gruntwork out there, the maintenance piece. Well, it can't have that because there may be some folks out there who can't use the SSH tunnel, wouldn't want to use it, that sort of thing. So it had to stand on its own. Before I put Gruntwork out for people to use, and we just did that back in March. We opened it up. We pulled a small Google group, an MSP Google group about it, and try to see what kind of response we would get from it. But before I put it out there, I converted all of BestMacs clients, all of our workstations we support, to that version because it's I don't want to put it out there if I'm not eating my own dog food. And so Blue Sky, I'm close. Probably another couple weeks, I'll have that ready to go for everybody. I'm going to switch BestMacs over to it probably later this week or early next.
So, Brian, on the topic of turning on the built-in services like screen sharing or remote login, and exposing those services on a client machine, with regards to laptops, what's your policy there? Do you create like either your own, admin user or a hidden admin user? Do you enforce a password policy? I'm always concerned about leaving services like that turned on laptops because they may go to a hotel room and now they're advertising these services over Bonjour, on the network.
That's actually a great question. And, you're absolutely right. I mean, we do install our own admin account. We push it out with Monkey, as part of the Gruntwork solution that we're putting out. We use the create user package binary. Gosh, I forgot who wrote it, but great product there for having something, a little installer package that will create your user account. And whenever I have a change in employees, we rotate that. And for us, it's just another version. So we're on version 1.6 of our admin account at this point that Monkey's pushing out for us. So that's what we use. That's what me and my team use. Obviously, our clients, could one of them use the word? Yeah, I think one of you guys said password 1234 is their password, or some goofy dictionary password like teacher or something like that. Yeah, they could. And so I think it's part of our responsibility as their consultants to say to them, hey, look, guys, choose good passwords. I evangelize one password just about every client that'll listen to me. Rotating them on a somewhat regular basis. You get buy-in. Some clients will buy in and they'll be like, oh yeah, absolutely, we should totally do that. Some clients won't listen at all. And I can tell them, hey, here's the risk, especially like you said, a laptop user in a hotel. It's like, hey, look, let's try shelling into that box. It is a concern. It really is. And that's something that probably needs to be weighed as part of the solution. For me, I told you, I'm your consultant. You can listen to me and it's good advice, or you could ignore it. And I hope they don't. Fortunately, most of my clients at this point have been with me long enough that I've really managed to establish that trusted advisor role. And so I don't have a whole lot of them that just completely ignore everything I tell them.
So anytime I hear managed service presentations, whether it's from you, Brian, or from somebody like Alan, I immediately, somewhere very early on into the presentation, I start like thinking about myself and internalizing it and thinking about what clients might be right to be moving towards a managed service product and start to run the numbers and see if this would work for me. Because of course, not only does it radically changes the way you do business and the way you have to think about doing business. So rather than you kind of like justifying the need for it, what led you demographically in your greater Kansas City area? What led you to this managed service profile and thinking about that before you even developed the product, where you were just looking at the over-the-counter stuff and saying, oh, this is the way I have to go? How did you arrive there?
It's interesting. For me, it actually was a really personal story. In 2008, I was in about the third year of a relationship with an Apple authorized reseller and service provider. And I was representing that group in our area, and it had some successes, it had some failures, but it was a kind of an 80-20 thing. It was a lot of work for a really small percentage of the revenue we were getting from our on-site business, on-site consulting and repair business. So about 2008, a couple things converged. One was I was getting to my wit's end with that service provider model, that reseller service provider model. And then the second thing was my son was born, my first son. And he was born about 9 weeks early. And so at a 31-weeker, when you have a child that early, they're going to spend time in the hospital. And obviously it was our first child, so we were kind of freaked. My wife and I were kind of freaked out, and there was a lot of drama that went along with that. I mean, he's fine. You look at him now; he's 6 years old, and he's great. There's not a darn thing wrong with him. But when you see a 3-pound baby sitting in a hospital with wires and tubes and all sorts of stuff hooked up to them, it freaks you out. And we spent about 6.5 weeks in that hospital unit, in that neonatal intensive care unit, with him. And what occurred to me as part of that, and part of realizing that, hey, I've got this kiddo in my life, and I'm not going to be able to do the 80-hour weeks anymore that I was putting in if I wanted to be a father to this kid, was that, this business, it's just, I got to change something. Something's got to give. And part of it also was I call it the sine wave of revenue. You have that, hey, lots of stuff broke and lots of people want to upgrade this month. Hey, I'm looking really great. And next month, ooh, man, nobody's calling. Why isn't more stuff broken? And it would be down. And that was hard. I mean, there were months there where I was putting payroll on credit cards just to try to make ends meet. And it was a tough gig. So when you put all those things together, I started thinking about, gosh, is there a better way I could be doing this? And I had this, I had some employees who did the best they could without me, but that was the other part of it. It's like, it's got to be able to function without me. I got to be able to build something that can function without me doing the day-to-day. I need to be working more on the business than in the business. And that's kind of a hard paradigm, especially for somebody who, for 9 years prior, I was the hired gun. I was the guy. When it broke, I was the one who went in and fixed it. Mm-hmm. And so that's a hard conversion to make. And I think managed services really fits the bill there, both from a revenue standpoint and a model of how you're going to provide service to your clients. It's very different than the break fix mentality. It's more proactive than reactive. It's more plentiful than scarce. And so, yeah, there is a lot of difference to it, and it's a hard thing to chew on. I can see why you guys have had a lot of shows about it, because even listening to Luis and Alan and Kevin and the other folks in the previous shows, they're doing it different than I did it, and there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of ways to approach this. My approach was definitely all in.
And thank you. First of all, thank you for sharing that personal story. I mean, that really sort of puts everything into perspective, but it's also thank you for sharing a little bit of your personal life with us, because it certainly helps us sort of connect with you and also understand what led you down this model. And just for a moment, without getting too particular, because you don't have to, but speak to your client, your installed base at that time. Was it conducive to, obviously it was, to this managed service model? Or, because I'm thinking, again, it's turning it back on myself for a moment. I'm thinking about, a lot of my clients, and it's, maybe 2-3 person shop, maybe 5 to 10, maybe less of those. But most of it's like 2 to 5 people typically. That's about 80% of my installed base. Sure. And if you could address that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in the same boat. I had basically 3 types of clientele at the beginning. I had the the repair, the folks who would bring their computers in for repair, and I do hardware repairs, software repairs, and so forth. Our sales at a reseller were dismal, and a lot of that was my fault. I just didn't, by that time, long story, but bottom line is we had those folks. Those folks just flat went away because I got out of that retail business, gave up the storefront, the whole nine, to focus on this. And then we had the residential folks. Many residential folks have been with me the whole time. I mean, I still to this day have some residential clients that have been with me since 2000, 2001. And then I had the small and medium business folks, and in that group I also lump in the MacWork group that sits inside the Windows ocean, and the Windows IT department kind of ignores them. So they're kind of like that small business a lot of times. And so when I was approaching the client base, I kind of went through those same machinations that you're talking about. It's like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Some of these guys, like a lot of these residential folks, they're not going to care. I mean, they're not going to care about quick response time to a machine going down. They're not going to care about running maintenance on the thing all the time. They're just not going to care about this. So what do I do? Well, the piece of advice I got that really helped was don't try to hit a home run. My first goal was, I had a twofold goal at the very beginning, and it was, one, I want everybody on managed services by the end of the year, and anybody who's not, I'm going to say goodbye to them. And actually, that's not true. It was not the end of the year, but 1 year. I gave myself about a year to get this done. And the second goal was I wanted to make sure that all of our recurring expenses, things like payroll, different services that we pay for, et cetera, all of that needed to be covered by recurring revenue. That way, the planning becomes that much easier. And that was my second goal for it. And we didn't quite hit it in a year. It took more about 18 months to get it done, but then we got there. Talking about the different clients, like your 2 to 5 client, I found the breakdown wasn't really by size. The breakdown was by whether they got it or not. Mm-hmm. Some clients got it and were like, oh yeah, this is great, let's do it. Some clients I had to, sell them on the concept, help them understand it. There's even some clients that even today, all these years later, I'm still explaining to them, no, you don't have to write it all down on a notepad. Just call us as soon as it happens. Okay. We're not coming out. We're not coming out. Just send it in. And then, we had some clients who were just like, why are you doing this? This is stupid. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you saying goodbye? It's that latter client that I didn't want to have a lot of, but I did have a lot of. And if I had to break it down, I'd probably say it was probably pretty close to 40%. I'd have to pull up the spreadsheet, but it was pretty big number of clients. But the good news on that is that they were all small clients. The big, if you break down your client base into 3 tiers, you've got your tier ones that are your perfect clients, the ones you'd work with every day and you love working with them. They buy what you're selling. They see the value in what you're doing. They do what you ask them to do. Every single one of my tier ones signed on almost immediately. I mean, they were on board and they loved it. And most of those were businesses that got it. Then there's that middle group that, they could go either way. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. They're kind of the anomaly. You hope that they grow into tier ones. And then you got the tier threes. And the tier threes are pretty much a remnant to the times when you're hungry. When you're first starting out, you'll take anything that comes your way because you need the revenue. You want to get the bills paid. And a lot of those for me were residential. And it sounds disrespectful when I talk about it like this way, but I liked every single one of them. I shouldn't say that. I liked most of them. So it was hard. And fortunately for me, I had a good friend in the area here who does primarily residential break fix, and he has no intentions of changing that. And he makes a good living by doing that. So it wasn't a deal where I was just like, hey, sayonara, suckers, you got nothing. I was able to hand them off to him and say, hey, here's a good friend of mine. He's going to take good care of you. So I wasn't leaving them high and dry. And that alleviated my guilt about it. But at the same time, allowed me to move forward. And so those clients that got it, like I said, it spanned the size. I've still got some residentials that are on managed services. And I had some businesses in that tier 2 category who were just like, nope, not paying for this. Don't see the value. And then they went away. But again, 40% of them going away really only represented a much smaller chunk of revenue, somewhere maybe 10 to 20% of revenues averaged over a year under the break fix model.
That's good to hear. I mean, initially that 40%, I was like, whoa, you lost that much, but it was 40% of your clients, but only 10% of revenue. So it makes more sense now. But
yeah,
I think
it wasn't a big hit. Yeah, I hear you. That'd be scary. Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah. And I think that's been the ongoing fear that any of us have had about moving to that different model. And that's what we've heard consistently from you and Luis and Alan. And it's just, we moved people over, and if they didn't get it, they didn't get it. And don't be afraid to say goodbye. And I think that's one little piece that we've probably all had that fear about. And that's the tough part to let go of, because some of these might be clients that you actually like you said. And it's a tough thing to say, okay, well, I'm sorry we can't be working together anymore. And they were a perfectly good paying client. Mm-hmm. So you going 100% takes a lot of, a lot to do it. And I haven't quite taken that leap personally. I mean, I've started to talk to some of my clients about moving that way, and I'm getting there. But, dropping that fear is something you have to do.
And if I can tell you, I wouldn't recommend that for everybody, because you're right. I mean, that's a hard leap. It was a really difficult thing to do. And I mean, I tell you, the first managed services contract I sold didn't happen until about 2 months after the announcement. I announced it to all the clients, sent out a big email blast. Here's what we're doing. I'll talk to you. I'll call you, talk to you about it, and answer any questions you have, and see if this is going to be right for you. 2 months, and I'm pounding the pavement. I'm going talking to clients, and some of them are like, "Oh yeah, okay, great." Da 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 da. But it took a while, even on the tier ones, to get buy-in. I mean, they jumped on it relatively quickly, but in that first 2 months, towards the end of that, I'm like, "Oh my God, have I screwed up? I mean, have I made a huge mistake here? This is insane." So I think it's a little more sanity to hear some of the more, what I would term as hybrid ways that I've heard people doing it. Like I know Alan's got a really inexpensive, pay this X amount, really inexpensive amount, ask us whatever you want kind of thing. And I think that's brilliant. That's a great way to get into it. For me, it was kind of a deal where I felt like I had to go all in on this from a workflow standpoint, because if I had a little bit of both, I was really concerned that with my employees, that I was going to be asking them to do, as many remote tickets that they could solve in Zendesk a day as they possibly could. But then, oh, wait, now you got to get in the car and you got to drive 2 hours to go to this client because they're not on managed services and they want something fixed.
So I was going to ask you, Brian, is it truly 100%, or can you be 100% honest with us and say it's actually 95 because there's those exceptional clients that, you just had to,
I can be completely honest with you at this point. We do not have any client that is not under a managed services agreement.
That's pretty impressive.
So what happens? Like, so you turn down like a juicy server install where a potential to have like several days on
there.
We will. I'll tell prospects right up front. The nice thing about in
Could you
Kansas
send them
City,
to
we
me?
have, come on down, man. We got good barbecue. Come on down, man. It's great. But we have 2 Apple stores, and I had a pretty good relationship with the business manager at one of them, so I was pretty fortunate there. And they would send a fair amount of work our way even before this switch. Well, after the switch, they were sending stuff over, and again, it was the same deal. Some people get it, some people don't. And I've been very upfront with every prospect that calls and says, hey, I got blah, blah, blah. I just bought a mini server. Can you help me get it set up? I'm like, well, here's our service package. It's unlimited maintenance, monitoring, consultative, vendor management, and remote support for a flat monthly. Interested? And they're like, oh, no, I don't really want to do any of that. Can you just come out and set up my server? No, we're not right for you. We're not the right fit. And, it's very, very easy for me to do that at this point where we are, because the bills are all paid. The monthly revenue we get from our managed services clients pays the bills. I'm not going to be in a situation where if I don't take a project, payroll isn't getting met this week. We haven't crossed that line. We haven't crossed that line since 2011. And then we've been very fortunate. So when I talk about managed services, a lot of times you'll hear me use the phrase life-changing. Well, it really has been for me because I don't really worry too much about the budget at this point. I mean, I have to make sure there's that line and we don't get too many expenses so that line goes too high, and we don't have churn to the point where we lose some clients before we sign more that we go under that line. But we've been very fortunate that And that's a really powerful position to be in, where that juicy, server client comes along. But for me at this point, it's all about fit. It's about, hey, here's what we offer. Here's how we do business. Does that work for you? Are you the type of client that's going to listen to us? That's going to treat us as a resource partner, not just some lackey that needs to come in and fix your server. that we're going to part.
That's me.
No offense to us.
No offense.
I'm waving my hand here.
Yeah, we used a similar term. I don't remember
scum
what
of
it
the
was.
earth. I think.
Scum of the earth.
There you go. So, there's other folks in KC. There's not a lot of us, but there's other folks in KC that do that. And a lot of times I'll send them to them and say, no, I'm not the guy you want. You want to call this guy or you want to call that guy, and just, try to fit it with the other providers and what their specialties are.
LackyMac.com, right?
Yeah, Lackey Mac. Yeah. But no, I mean, and really, guys, this isn't for everybody. I mean, I'm no doubt there's some people that'll try this, and it won't work. Just like it won't work for some clients. I could see some ACNs giving it a shot and saying, nah, you know what, this is too uncomfortable. This doesn't work. But I think when it's executed well, and who knows, maybe I've just been lucky. But for me, it's been great. It's been completely life-changing.
I can honestly say that I do see it. I mean, this is the reason why, while I've been busy with other stuff and not pushing it as much to a lot of my other clients yet, the first one I signed on, and literally it's been just one, but I saw it just when I saw that recurring credit card payment come through for Moonclerk on my third month. Mm-hmm. I said, "Oh, this is awesome! This money's coming in every single month." And this client we have a great relationship with, and I can see that paying initially just some expenses, and to that end, as that grows, paying some of my employee. And you said it a few times, and I agree with it 1,000%. When you see that cover your expenses for the month, it's a great feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that was the goal. I mean, it was just kind of, to me, that was the magic number, because then at that point, it's like, okay, something breaks, I can focus on being proactive. Now I can say, okay, well, you know what, we've got things covered. We don't have to worry we don't have to bust our butts just to make ends meet at the end of the month. We can slow down a little bit. We can look at being proactive. We can go to this client and say, hey, you know what? You really could use an upgrade here, or you could use this or that. And we can kind of focus on that. And that's belying a little bit of, it's exaggerating a little bit, because there are times where we get a lot of work tickets coming in and we get overwhelmed. We had a fairly decent sized churn here in the past couple months, and I had an employee leave right about the same time. So I had this 90-day window where we had a little more business than my current team could handle effectively, and I didn't want to hire somebody on just to say, I'm going to can you in about 90 days, or I'm going to drop below that line. So, credit to my guys. They've really busted their butts here this past 90 days, but hopefully we're going to kind of get back on track. So, I make it sound real rosy. It's still work. I mean, there's still things you got to solve. There's still bugs, and server app still drives me absolutely bonkers.
Join the club.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's you're still delivering value. You're still doing the things that you do as an ACN. You're just getting paid for them a little bit differently, and the attitude you have with your clients is I think, much better.
And when you say your guys, what size is your teams right now?
I have a part-time administrative assistant, and I have 2 full-time techs that work with me. One of my guys is more of a quality control guy, project manager, escalations guy for some of the other, right now the only other tech who's primarily help desk and answering Zendesk tickets.
Gotcha.
And so part of the challenge for him is that I got to get him back more into that proactive quality control stance. Because, we still make a good amount of project revenue that's not included in our managed services offering. So, if somebody comes to us and say, hey, we bought 6 new computers, upgrade all our computers, that ain't covered. So that's going to be project revenue on top of the monthly.
So, Brian, can you, on that topic, walk us through, how you would engage with a client like you described earlier, who might call you and say, we've got a new Mac Mini server to set up. They're a brand new prospect, and you introduce your managed services pricing model, and they say, yeah, let's go for it, and let's start with this server project. Would you kind of just, write up a proposal for the server project as a standalone thing as well as a monthly?
Yes. Yeah, that's what we do. My quality control guy would probably bonk me over the head if he heard me saying this, but the ideal would be that either he or I would go on site first and spec it and make sure that we weren't, getting in over our heads with something or signing a really bad fit. We have a client that's currently on our roster, and I get angry every time I see their number come up because we gave them a quote in the early part of 2013. They were like, okay, well, let us think about it. It was kind of the same deal. We're going to switch to Mac from Windows, and we kind of like this, but we're kind of on the fence. I'm like, well, sit on it, think about it. And then over the summer, we got a lot of work, and we raised our rates. We raised the rates on our plan. And then they came back after that, about a month after I raised the rates. And what I should have done is said, hey, guys, that quote was like 4 months ago. Forget it. I need to re-quote. What I really should have done is gone on site and inspected it a little bit better. But instead, what I did was just said, oh, yeah, okay, fine. We'll honor that quote. No problem. It's been a disaster. I mean, it's been awful. They're on a fractional T1. Remote support is like pulling teeth. And they don't, getting them to upgrade their internet has been a brutal. I'm like practically begging them at this point. So they're not, we talk about fit. That's not really a great fit in a lot of ways, in that, I want to be that resource partner. I want to be that IT guy that they trust, that trusted advisor. You don't tell your trusted advisor when he tells you to get better internet to go bugger off. you do it because I'm not doing it for me. I don't care if you want to suffer on a T1. Do it. And then to boot, I'm undercharging them. And I can't blame them. That's totally my fault. I put the quote out, and I had my chance to get back from it. So, when you talk about that guy who calls up, says, hey, I just got a brand new server, Apple Store gave me your name. Can you come out and help me? And I love the managed services concept. It's great. We still want to get out there. We still want to see, what they've got. What kind of gotchas are they going to have? This particular client I just mentioned has a whole bunch of VirtualBox, and they're doing a whole bunch of stuff in Windows. Surprise! Now we're supporting Windows for these guys at a fraction of what I should be charging them. But it's so we really want to go out and assess that first and get a sense of what they are. So it's not just, hey, do you buy in? That's crucial, and that's the first place we start. Because if they say no, well, can you just build it and then we'll call you when we need you? No, that's not us. That's very easy. But when they do buy in, then we want to dig deeper, make sure we get the project quote right. And sometimes the old school me is just like, no money, let's go get it. New client, woo! And I shouldn't do that. That's what I say. One of my quality control guy would be pissed at me if you heard me saying that right now. So.
Ben in the chat says he'll hold the bonk.
Oh crap! Hi Ben, how you doing? Yeah, there you go. So anyway, yeah, that's yeah. So I don't think it's definitely not all rosy. There is still a lot of work to be done, but again, I still think it's a better model.
Well, just bringing it back for a moment to Gruntwork. I mean, if you are going to employ this sort of model, then things like Watchman, things like Gruntwork, they will help you just be more efficient. I mean, that's what I'm starting to figure out is initially, for instance, I signed in with Watchman, and I've been looking at Gruntwork actually for the last couple of weeks. And the thing about it is, now that I'm starting to try and employ that model, it just makes sense to do things that make that more efficient, because you're not billing by the hour anymore.
Right.
So the less hours you can dedicate to this task, the more efficient you are.
Right. And it's the what I talked about with plentiful versus scarce. The one of the things I say to clients a lot of times these days is, and especially a new prospect that I'm pitching that I really think is going to be a great fit and I want to work with, I tell them, look, guys, our goals are aligned. The other guy that you're getting a quote from, he wants your crap to break. He's going to bill you hourly when it happens. And so if he's there 8 hours working on something, he doesn't care. He's going to bill you 8 hours and he's going to be fat and happy about it. Me, if my guys take 8 hours to fix something, I'm going to be ripped. I'm not going to be happy because I charge you the same amount every month. And I don't get any extra if it takes us a long time to fix it. So you don't want your stuff to break. I don't want your stuff to break. I do better when your stuff works perfectly and you never have to call me.
Yeah, if you guys want to go to scumoftheearthmacsupport.com.
Oh, guys, no disrespect intended. I seriously, but
we make a big joke about it all the time.
That's a huge sale. I mean, I've seen lots of clients' eyes light up at that concept. Like, wow, really? Yeah, that's awesome. And it plays into that whole trusted advisor concept that, I got your back. I want your stuff to work as badly as you want it to work.
Yeah, well, what really sold it for me was thinking about just how much I give away, because I don't want to be the scum of the earth, running the clock, well, sorry, it took me, 15 hours to migrate your email, that's all billable time. I'm giving away, I'm just discounting like crazy, when stuff like that happens. And so, I might as well be on managed services. I might as well be just doing that and eating that time and getting paid the same amount every month anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Well, and the thing with Gruntwork is that, part of the deal with Gruntwork is that it's very, I want to say it's very in your face, but people will see it. They will see it. And the reason we put your branding on it, we white label it with your branding, is because part of the problem with managed services is, okay, I'm cutting, client says to you, hey, I'm cutting you this check every month, but nothing broke this month. What did you do to earn this money? Well, with Gruntwork, they're seeing it. They're seeing a dialogue come up. They're seeing a little reminder come up asking them to log out to run maintenance. They're getting some sort of tangible touch point that shows my logo or your logo to them that says, oh, hey, wait a second. Yeah, okay, this is partially what we're paying for. And so it just gives you that little value add. At the same time, it's reducing your expense. This is all stuff you'd really want to do anyway. You'd want to get software updates out there. You'd want to run disk verification. You'd want to do all these tasks. It's just done. It's done for you. And again, we wrote some plugins for Watchman monitoring, so Watchman will alert you if something goes wacky with Gruntwork, or if something goes great. I mean, my favorite feature of Gruntwork by far is the disk verification, doing a live verification on the boot disk. If the volume structure is corrupt, we reboot into single user mode and try to repair it. I love it when it repairs it, because I get this little notice that comes up that says, hey, there was a corrupted volume structure, but we fixed it and you didn't have to send a tech.
Man, have you told John Syracuse about that feature?
I have not.
Oh, you would love it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and that's been huge. I mean, I love being able to take that email and say to, hey, Mr. Client, guess what we did for you? And we didn't have to down your machine for a couple hours when we did it. It just worked.
So wait a second, that's kind of crazy. So it actually it finds the live verification fails, which gives you the red text that says you need to try to boot from another volume or boot from the recovery partition. It'll actually reboot in single user mode and mount the volume and run the repair.
It will attempt, it'll do an FSIC from single user mode and attempt the repair on it. It's not always successful. I mean, sometimes you still got to get out that copy of Disk Warrior, or something like that. But when it works, and the nice thing about it is with Gruntwork, we're trying to execute that maintenance daily if we could pull it off, every week if we need to. It varies based on your user's schedule. It adapts to what your user is doing to try to stay out of their way when they're trying to work. But if you are catching this directory structure corruption while it's small, the odds are the FSIC and the built-in tool is going to fix it. It's when it sits there and persists and festers is when it's like, okay, now I got a blinky question mark when I try to start up and I need Disk Warrior to try to salvage it. We're catching it while it's small, and
Wow.
Additionally, when you're going to troubleshoot something, if it's not a known issue and you're actually having to sit there and try to figure out and troubleshoot it, well, there's one you can scratch off. Oh, Gruntwork just did disk verification in this thing and it passed yesterday. So it speeds up the live troubleshooting that you do have to do.
Wow. That's pretty impressive that it can actually reboot and execute those commands.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Don't you think if Apple plans to keep HFS Plus around for any longer, they should just buy Alsoft and build Disk Warrior into the recovery partition?
No, I don't think they should do that at all.
Talking to the wrong guy about that.
Yeah. That's pretty. That's pretty impressive. I haven't heard about that feature before. I mean, everybody knows about things like Applejack, where you can kind of run some stuff on the command line manually, but being able to have that run automatically on reboot, after detecting a problem, that's pretty impressive.
Well, Applejack was really an inspiration. I used Applejack a lot in my break fix days, and it I loved it. Loved that program. And it took a lot. A lot of the inspiration for Gruntwork was a lot of, okay, how can I automate Applejack where I don't have to be sitting in front of it to execute it? And that's, and you'll find a lot of the feature set matches.
And that's been gone for a long time, I think, right? It broke with 10.8, didn't it?
Yeah, one of my subscribers, Gruntwork subscribers, had Applejack installed throughout his client base, and it actually screwed us up because it uses the same mechanism in single user mode that ours does. So Gruntwork kept thinking, "Oh crap, my root profile's still there. I got to do single user mode and fix this disk." But it was just Applejack. So that was a fun experience, and making it compatible with Applejack, so they didn't fight with each other.
Interesting. So I have to ask, Brian, we've covered, like we always do, a lot about sort of migrating a existing break-fix practice or hourly billing practice to managed services, and how to smooth over that transition and things like that. Do you have any advice for the consultants among us who are already doing managed services and they have maybe higher level needs about any wisdom you can offer, since you've been doing this for such a long time compared with a lot of Mac consultants?
Oh wow. That's a great question, man.
Maybe
That's
just
deep.
a shout out to Alan and Luis.
Yeah. Shout out to those guys. No, I would say you don't necessarily have to get stuck in any way of doing things. You got to go with what works. And I know I don't know if there's anything specific. There's lots of specific little things I could tell you. But it's a very different mindset. And for me, again, I said it earlier, but that's why I really felt like I had to go all in. I didn't feel like I could straddle both worlds and make it work. And you're right. There's a fair amount of sacrifice for doing that. I think the rewards outweigh the sacrifice. But that might be, something that if you're just getting started. What worked for me, though, is I already had some employees. I already had a fairly decent-sized client base. For the guy who's a solo guy and he's just starting out, and that's going to be a harder sell. I mean, it's going to be a much harder sell you might not even have the client base to convert. But, I would say try to make it your first service offering. Try to get buy-in from the clients. Think about the benefit to them. The benefit to you. The benefit to you, of course, is the monthly recurring revenue and the fact that you're going to work with clients that get you and like you. But the benefit to them are the things, like I said, with when it breaks, I don't want it to break either. I'm on your side. And, there are benefits to your clients, and that's what you're going to need to sell them on. So, and I know I'm not covering new ground here. I think I remember Luis said kind of the same thing in one of your previous podcasts, that you got to sell them on the benefits of it. You got to help them understand why it makes sense for them to embrace this model from the service provider as well. Some people just aren't going to get it. I mean,
So at the risk of going long here at the hour mark, how do you sort of develop pricing around that? If you've got an existing business and you start to, explore managed services, how do you develop the pricing that's fair to the clients to get them to, obviously you want to cover your expenses, you want to make some money, and you want to charge a fair price and make it comparable or competitive with the managed services offering. I'm sorry, with a break fix offering.
Well, this is why I said earlier, one of the first things I kind of figured out was you don't necessarily have to try to hit a home run. At this point, I do. I'm really kind of unabashed about it, because we've got probably more work than my current team can handle. Realistically, I'm not going to. If I sign any larger new clients, I'm going to have to hire again, and that's not a bad thing. But
so it's a macro problem versus a micro problem.
That's a first world problem, right? In the very beginning, though, it's kind of like I got to get buy-in from people on this. How do I do it? My answer, there's lots of ways to do it. That's actually been one of the biggest questions I've gotten from potential Gruntwork subscribers who are kind of getting started. Is how am I going to price this? I'm going to pay you this monthly fee for Gruntwork. How am I going to sell it? How am I going to make return on that? And there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's my way is the all you can eat, what some people have called the chocolate cake recipe. I've got a couple of links on the Mac-MSP website of articles that I found about different pricing methodologies and the way you could structure it. For me at the beginning, the answer was that I started with the per workstation, per server model. I'm going to get X amount per server. I'm going to get X amount per workstation per month. And I started with that. Went to a client of mine that was already paying me in the monthly fee for prepaid hours, essentially. They were paying about $1,500 a month in prepaid hours. And I go to them, and based on their machine count, I hit them with about $2,700 a month. They looked at me like I had bugs crawling out of my ears. They're like, Brian, this sounds great, but we can't do another $1,200 a month with you. No way. So I kind of went back to the drawing board and tempered that a little bit by looking at how much they had spent on us in the previous year or two and averaged that out per month and use that to kind of temper the amount a little bit. So, meet me in the middle. All right. So I want to charge you X amount per machine per month. and then, here's what you did spend on me. Well, you're getting more value for what I'm about to offer you, so it should go up on what you had been spending, but maybe not to this astronomical level.
Right. So it sounds like it's a little bit of a case-by-case evaluation.
For us, it was at the beginning, yeah. And in some of my residentials, just again, it was kind of I don't want to say goodbye to you. I like you. You like me. We've done great together over the years. So for them, I've got a really tiny package, a $50 a month package that gives them essentially Gruntwork and Watchman monitoring and the Blue Sky tool that we use. But they only get about 6 remotes a year. It's not unlimited.
I see.
To try to curb our costs on it.
Yeah, personally, I found it. Sorry to step on you there. I think that was Sam.
That's all right. I'm used to
it. Yeah, you're right. You're right here in town, so it happens all the time. I made up
that, Steve.
I made up this spreadsheet, and in numbers of all programs here, and just laying out like, okay, first column is the client, next column is how many consulting dollars did I make, per last year or the last 12 months or on average or whatever. And converting that to hours, and then I added columns for like number of users, number of machines, number of servers, and so on. And I figured out so what would the price be if I charged them X amount, per machine and per server?
Yeah.
And how does that compare to like what I made last year, on this client over the same time period? And it was just all over the place. I did a comparison in the last column showing like, the difference in cost if I were to convert them to managed services with this, consistent pricing model for every client. And some were like, $5,000 higher, some were $5,000 lower, some were, a few $100s off, some were $1,000. They were just all over the place, up, over and under.
Yeah.
And so I realized that some people would be like, wow, this is great. Like I'm spending a lot less money. I'm getting the same service or better. Some people would be charged quite a bit more. And so I couldn't really reconcile that because I didn't want to just, you sort of like pitch that at the risk of signing up all the people who stand to benefit hugely and not signing any of the clients that are, going to pay a little bit more.
I think you always want to try to maximize revenue, and that was kind of my feeling when I went into it. Is I've got a goal that I want to hit here. I've got a limited number of existing clients that I've got to hit it with, and same kind of deal. The ones that are going to be under, fine. Just don't go under. Just match. It's a really easy sell to go in there and say, hey, I'm not going to charge you any more, but you're going to get better service. And in fact, you could even go in and say, hey, this is better than what you've been getting, so I'd like to raise you up by X amount. The closer you can get for the ones that are going to be way expensive, that one client I just told you about, I actually used that as a model as I went to the rest of them and said, hey, I priced this out by what, quote unquote, I'm doing air quotes, the industry said I should get for this type of service. And they said I should be getting astronomical crazy number. And then I tempered it. I said, well, that's Southern California. That's a bunch of LA guys. Here in Kansas City, that should be about 40% less based on cost of living, but it's still astronomical number 2. But you guys spent with me X amount per month on average over the last couple of years. I can't quite match this because it's a better service offering that I'm offering you. It's better for these reasons. It's proactive. It's da-da-da-da-da-da. So how about this?
I feel like I'm being pitched to a pasta maker or something.
And I give them some number in the middle. But it worked because all of a sudden they're seeing, holy crap, he's offering me this thing that he should be charging me based on his industry. He should be charging me this, but he's offering it to me for this. And yeah, it's a little more, but it's better. And that closed a lot. That helped a lot. I don't really do that anymore because that is pretty intensive meeting wise because you've got to pitch that. You got to pitch it to your point of contact, then you got to pitch it to their boss, the actual decision maker sometimes. And you got to kind of flesh out there's another number that I added to that was how much of work are you doing yourself that you don't have to do anymore when you have us do this now?
Right. And
how much is that going to save you in payroll and efficiency and opportunity cost? Fleshing out those numbers is kind of hard, and it really adds. If you had a dedicated salesperson, I think you could probably pull that off. I couldn't do that. So a lot of times I just eschewed that last number, but giving them that kind of value proposition was really good. These days, again, I'm lucky to be in a comfortable place where I don't necessarily have to do that. I can just say it's $62 per machine per month. It's $270 per month per server. It's X amount per network, X amount per iOS device. and so on. And that's the deal. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, it sounds like it gets a lot easier once you've got, some clients on there, and then you just start pitching it to all your new prospects, and it's much easier than trying to convert existing clients to it.
Yeah, it is. It's. I think it's much easier with new ones, and even with the new ones for a little while. The new people who come along, I still did that model for a little while because we didn't quite hit that nut yet. We really wanted to close and get more managed services clients. So I was still doing that. I would ask them. I'm like, hey, you didn't work with me. What did you pay your previous guy? What did you pay for outside support? And still managed to get that number out of them sometimes. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes they're like, well, we never hired anybody. Okay. So let's just kind of go with the machine model and see how it goes. And sometimes it flies. Sometimes I negotiate down. And you can still be flexible. Nobody says you got to stick to your hard, fast rule. You don't necessarily have to hit a home run. If they're a good fit, I think more importantly, even than hitting the home run with the pricing, is are they a good fit? Do they get it? Are they gonna start questioning every silly little thing you tell them? Are they gonna blame your automated software? I mean, that was a big scary for me, and I'm still helping. Some Gruntwork subscribers have talked to me. Hey, we just installed this. Is it possible that it caused a problem? Believe me, I have that thing log everything so that we can look at the logs and see exactly what it's been doing and if it could have possibly caused an issue or not. And so far it hasn't.
Good stuff, Brian. I mean, all very good points that I think just from the MSP model that we've always been talking about and been more curious about more information on. And then on the Gruntwork side, I think we were all very excited to learn more about the product as a whole.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah, absolutely. We've got some demo videos up. I've got right now. They're kind of hidden. They're not linked anywhere. But if you just go to MacMSP.com/demo, you'll be able to see kind of what the user experience is like, what it's like for Monkey when Monkey runs as called by Gruntwork, and how it is how you add your own software to the Monkey repo and push out your own software packages through Monkey and Gruntwork. So you guys can check that out if you want to learn more, or feel free to email me or call me. I'll be happy to answer any questions I can answer for you.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll put that stuff in the show notes as well, and listeners can go to commandcontrolpower.com and look for this show, and you'll find all those show notes as well as links. So Brian, I have to ask one more thing. How did you find time to actually write all this stuff in the middle of managing your practice?
Kids are in bed, wife's asleep, I'm staying up. Yeah, a lot of late night coding, and it's kind of sad. I do a fair amount of it on my iPhone, if you can believe it. I'll just sit there and bang out code on the iPhone and test it later after I have a chance to do it. And hey, it works. But yeah, the nice thing also is that I'm more freed up to work on the business as opposed to in it. And to me, the furthering of the tools that we use is part of working on it, as much as marketing and as much as sales and as much as helping out my guys with anything they need. It's really important that we get these tools right, and especially now that I'm offering them to peers, to my colleagues like you guys. It's got to be good. I'm not going to embarrass myself. Don't want to embarrass you. I want to make sure it's good. and I can say that because I use it and I've been using it.
That's great. It sounds like a great transition that you went through and really successful. So congratulations on going through with that. And thanks for sharing your wisdom and knowledge over the years.
No, thank you guys. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. It's been great. Thank you so much.
I think it was a great show.
Awesome.
Yep. Yeah, well said.
Brian, you have a real good command of speaking, and you did a great job talking about your product and also presenting to us, a real compelling case for not only your product, but this whole way of looking at doing our business completely differently. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm a simple caveman, and this is just a real hard thing for me to kind of wrap my head around. And just if you can, just speak to the point, like there's a company that basically what they do is they sit down with a client before they do business with them, and they sign them up for a contract, and they have like a good, better, and best type of contract offering them X amount of hours on site. And and the way they sort of get them to do that, to sign on the line, is basically saying, well, and we'll be happy to support you, simply doing break fix. But we can't guarantee that we're going to be able to respond to you. Whereas if you sign on, with one of our programs, we're going to be there for you. And it's kind of like it's extortion. It's like
that feels. It's interesting. I saw that pricing. The gold, silver, bronze pricing model. I actually considered that at one point very early on. And I still think there's merit to that model, and I know there's lots of the Windows guys. The Windows guys actually have a bit of a leg up on us on this, because a lot of the Windows guys embrace managed services a lot faster than those of us in the Mac community. Mm-hmm. So the nice thing is we could piggyback off of that. We can't use their tools necessarily like Kaseya and the rest, but we can learn a lot about their business practices, and that's. For me, that was kind of why I wanted to go all in, because I knew what was going to happen. I knew it was going to be a deal where contractually every one of my clients has a contract, a managed services contract, and in that contract there's an SLA that defines our response times. And I knew there was going to be a conflict at some point where the managed services guy has an outage and the break fix guy has an outage, and the managed services guy has a contract that spells an SLA. And the break fix guy does not. And I'm going to have to tell the break fix guy, sorry, dude, tough luck. I can't get to you. And, to me, that's just, those guys are using it as extortion. I don't even want to let it go there, because I know it's going to be a bad job, and I know it's going to be a bad deal for that guy on the break fix side. And I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that to them. So, that's, it's probably a little sleazy to use that as a threat. But I mean, I think there's truth in it, but I don't know that I would use it as I think there's better ways to sell a managed services concept to a client than by threatening that we're not going to be able to help you.
Agreed. Sure, yeah. And I mean, my intention wasn't to get you to kind of like put that down, but I was just thinking like, well, it almost seems, certainly to retool my business, and to get on board with the way you're doing business and with your service, it would take a lot of effort, kind of not only to, and there would be a transition period where maybe things would be lean for a little while, and you really have to kind of like really sort of make a commitment. It's like, getting rid of all your furnishings and joining some other religion, and getting rid of all your, a lot of your assets, and just trusting that the religion's going to take you to another place and you're going to be much happier there. I mean, I mean, I don't know that's probably a gross exaggeration, but
no, I don't think it is at all. I mean, no, I don't think it is at all. By the time I got to the point of selling it in 2010, I had been feeling like I needed to do it. It was actually funny. I didn't share online, but Casper, actually, I saw Casper at Macworld Expo, and I was like, dude, I could use this to deploy software and run scripts and do everything on my client base, and that'd be great. And then I could charge monthly for this as a fee. And it really set off that kind of spark that, hey, this is a way I could run my business. So obviously then I start vetting the tools and start, saying, oh crap, I got to build my own. And then, but for 2 years or so, I had been really kind of waffling, gosh, I really want to do this. I think it'd be great. I think it'd be fantastic. And, by the time I actually started pitching it to clients, I had already kind of figured out what pricing model I was going to use. I already figured out what tools I was going to use /build. And had already built them to a certain degree and tried them out at a handful of clients. But it wasn't just I'm going to wake up one morning and start doing this. But by the time I got to the point where I was ready to sell it and evangelize it and go talk to every single one of my clients about it, I was really all in at that point. It was just something, okay, I got to make this work. And like I said, that first 2 months was really scary, because it's like, oh crap, I just committed all this time building these tools and all this time thinking about it, and I presented this to a whole bunch of clients, and none of them are biting. Oh crap! Is anybody going to bite on this? That first one that signed on the dotted line, I was elated. It was such a relief, and then it just kind of started coming in waves after that, until finally The ones that were going to do it had done it, and the ones that weren't going to do it didn't. And I had signed enough new clients in that interim to cross that threshold of that magic number of the recurring revenue paying the expenses.
So at some point, it was literally the response was, "Sorry, we can't help you. We sent you this information, we sent you this pitch, and."
Yep, I just said, it was kind of like your guys, those guys you just mentioned. I don't think it was as threatening, but it was just kind of like, look, this is the direction my business is heading. This is the way I'm going to provide support from now on. I like you guys. I really want you to come with me on this journey, but if you don't get it, if it's not for you, I understand. And I've got a friend of mine who does this who will be happy to help you out from here on out. And that was just it. And
the spaceship is leaving, and we need you. We need you in sneakers and.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound all metaphysical about it or anything, but it was kind of like, you guys, this is the boat is leaving the pier. Get on. There were quite a few that didn't, and most of them were residential, and most of them were the folks I would see maybe once a year. To the tune of maybe $150 a year or something like that. So asking them to commit to $600 a year at $50 a month, even my smallest package that I would offer to those folks is kind of a, hey, this is the best I can do. Please get on board with me. For them, it still didn't work. And I get it, and that's fine. And even then, there were some businesses that I'd done a lot of business with and was really close on the pricing. And they were just like, I don't get it. Why are you doing this? I don't get it. One guy just told me, Brian, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, okay. Maintenance, there's two hurdles I think you guys will bump into. And that is that one, as Mac people, we have the whole Macs don't break thing that we've got to overcome. Why should I pay for maintenance and monitoring? Macs don't break. I don't even have to tell you how silly that is. But we've got to overcome it. Perception is reality, so we've got to overcome that. For BestMacs, I'm getting ready to launch a marketing piece called "It Doesn't Just Work." we make it just work.
Nice.
Nice.
I got a great marketing guy. But so there's that, and then the second piece is that a lot of people just don't want to pay for maintenance. They won't go get their teeth cleaned so they can avoid the root canal. They'll just kind of whatever. And eventually they'll pay for it in the long run. Those are the folks who aren't going to get it. Those are the folks who are never going to be a managed services client. And then there's nothing you can do about that.
Well, it's great to be in that position of power to say, if they don't get it, they can just go elsewhere, and you actually have somebody you can refer them to.
Yeah, and it's a hard deal. I would imagine, having somebody to refer them to would probably be easier in the tri-state area. I imagine you guys got a lot of different folks out there, probably more than I do here in KC. But it's still hard. I mean, it's still hard to say goodbye to somebody you've been working with for years and who, you're their guy. I had one lady, boy, she got ripped. She's like, "Are you really dumping me? Are you dumping me?"
Oh, wow.
I'm like, "Beth, I can't." It doesn't, you're not going for this. She's like, "Well, I don't want to pay you a monthly fee." Well, that's what we're doing now.
Right.
It wasn't, I can look back on it now, 2.5, 3 years removed from the transition and say, hey, it's easy for me to eschew that type of business. I don't need that anymore. Back then, it was still hard, right up, but it was just one of those deals where I kept focusing on the nugget, that magic nugget of, I don't have to put payroll on a credit card. My bills are going to be paid every month. Those checks are going to come in every month. I don't even have to think about it. And I know my bills are getting paid. And then all that extra project revenue, all the stuff, the extra stuff that comes in, that's gravy. I mean, I can do what I got to do with that. I can pay for one of my guys to go get some training. I can take a week off for a change. Can you imagine?
Joe can.
Yeah, still fresh in my mind.
Yeah, well, but
after one in 10 years, I think we're all entitled to that.
Yeah, well, I don't do it as often as I would like, but that's
we're not going to let you live it down, Joe.
Right, I know, right? How do you handle upgrades, Brian? How do you existing client is signed on, they drank the Kool-Aid, they're paying you every month, and then they add 10 users, or that's probably a bad example. They add 1 or 2 users. I mean, what do you do?
It's actually built in the agreement. The per machine cost is built in, and so we say, hey, if you add a user, we're going to increase it by this much. If it's, if you add a computer, you add a user. I really actually kind of like what Luis said the other day. I actually do it by computer, and I make exceptions for things like computer labs or machines that, don't belong to somebody. I usually charge them at like half a computer or something like that. But I like how he said that he's doing it per user. I actually just talked to a new prospect today who's on board. He's got 8 computers, 4 users. Everybody's got a desktop and a laptop. I have a feeling that will change because I've never seen anybody maintain that consistently. But at this point, I quoted it for him at 4 users, based partially on what you guys did that podcast, and Luis said he did that, and I was like, that makes sense. Maybe I should try that. The adding of things, the adding of changes. Some managed services models account for that and will build it in. Mine does to a certain degree. It used to be things like massive changes or additions we would bill as a project, and we still have that language in our agreement. That if they add, like, let's say they're all, we just had a client here recently, you love this, they were still on 10.4 on PowerPC machines.
Wow.
This was like 2 months ago. And I was begging them, I'm like, guys, please come on. But all they do is email and FileMaker, and it was working for them. And then finally, this was at the end of last year because it was a tax thing. They had to spend some money for taxes, and they went ahead and upgraded everything to brand new minis. Well, that was billable. I mean, we said, okay, here's what's going to take to get from where you are to get these minis in play with all the upgrades and such. And here's a flat fee. We'll charge you for it. And, and that's what we'll bill you for it. That was gravy. The one real monkey wrench that Apple has provided to me recently was Mavericks for free. Because one of the things under my model that's really difficult is change management. We want to make sure that, they aren't upending a whole bunch of stuff and breaking things. I don't charge them extra for stuff that's broken. I do have a clause in there that if they hire somebody else and that somebody else comes in and breaks crap and they expect me to fix it under the managed services fee, that's billable. To kind of cover myself. But
if the user does it themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And when Mavericks came out and Apple announced it for free, my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, I sent an email out within an hour of the announcement of the keynote, basically to all my clients saying, I beg you, please do not download this right now. Please give me a chance to make sure it's good. And actually just greenlit 10.9.3 about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I fired a client over it. I had one client who said, hey, I want to go to Mavericks. I'm like, don't go to Mavericks, go to Mountain Lion. Your stuff will work just fine on it. Mavericks has still got some real wonky issues and you're going to have problems with it. Please don't do it. Just, go to Mountain Lion. We'll give you a project quote to get it done. And they were like, nope. And over a weekend they had the owner's nephew come in and they upgraded all 30 machines to Mavericks. And then they called me the next day and said, hey, we can't log into our server. I'm like, why? And I pull them up in my web interface, and they're all sitting on 10.9.1, I think it was at the time. And I was like, oh, you've got to be, no effing way. and I just
pissed me off.
Oh, I was ripped, dude. I was seeing red, and I called my point of contact. I'm like, did you do it? Did you really upgrade everything to Mavericks? She's like, yeah, we did. It was the owner's decision, and we didn't want to pay your fee. And I'm just like, we're done, guys, because in my contract, everything that you do that causes issues that I did not do for you, every upgrade that you do that I did not do for you that causes issues is billable. Guys, your monthly fee is worthless. I will have to charge you for every stinking little thing that we have to deal with from you from here on out. I'm not doing it. And you obviously don't trust me enough to be your trusted IT guy, so good luck. I'm out.
Wow.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's just that was a deal breaker. But now it's kind of like, well, I really can't. What I might kind of learn from that and talking with some other clients is, we actually figured out how to roll 10.9.3 with Monkey. And so once I figured that out, I said, you know what, we're going to roll Mavericks. We're not going to charge for it. Cool. I'm only going to ask that they give us the opportunity to do a site survey before we roll it. When we roll it, we're going to go ahead and put it in their Monkey repo, and it's going to install. We'll just kind of tell them how it does. And so far, it's worked out pretty well.
That's pretty cool.
Well, thanks, man. This is all cool stuff, and we definitely appreciate you coming on board for this.
No, thank you guys for the invitation. That was great. I was really looking forward to this. So thank you so much. That's great.
Yes, it's really, really interesting.
Definitely won't be the last time we talk. That's for sure.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe has mentioned, Joe has really spearheaded a lot of our managed service talks. And so the next roundtable, we want to make sure that you're part of that. So we'll be doing one probably, right, Joe, sometime in there?
Absolutely. Yeah, we should definitely do another one with Alan and Luis and you, Brian. That would be great.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, anytime, man. This has been fantastic. So anytime I can be a part of it, let me know.
Command Control Power wouldn't exist without the support of our community. So we'd like to take a moment to ask you for your support. If you've enjoyed the content we've produced every week since 2013, please tell a friend and write a review in your favorite podcasts app to help new listeners find us. To really encourage us, you can visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support to make a monthly pledge. Joining our community of patrons will get you access to the entire catalog of over 450 episodes, plus exclusive patron-only episodes where we can speak even more candidly about the realities of technology consulting, business, and life. That's commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Special thanks to the following community members whose strong monthly support has sustained us for all these years. Ryan Gowdy, corecompetent.com. Weldon Dodd, kanji.io. Richard Wingfield, envisiondesign.net. Adam Rice, askadam.io. Mac Admins Podcast, podcast.macadmins.org. Tim Nyberg, themacguys.com. Michael Thompson, origin84.com. Matthew Waples, waples.net. Tom Puls, boxit.tech. Jerome Potters, pitpro.nl. Steve Sorbo, macsos.biz. Andy Espo, callandy.com. And Nate Sinal, weareascout.com. Thank you all very much, and thanks to our patrons at every level of support. If you enjoy the show, we really would love your support. And if you already support us and can increase your monthly pledge, we really do find that encouraging. commandcontrolpower.com and click support. Thanks very much for listening and for supporting the show.